Good evening and welcome to Connect to Escape. My name's Kara Sterling and tonight we're going to be discussing authentic faith. Who do we look to blame when things go wrong in our lives? Is grace something which we're all eligible for, or is there no such thing as an unconditional gift? These are the things we're going to be discussing tonight on Connect to Escape. Joining me this evening, we have several guests. We have Andrew Leyland, who is the Director of English at Newbold College, John Allore, who is the Recruitment Officer at Newbold College, Sophia Peart, who is currently a student of theology, and Patrick Johnson, who is currently studying for a doctoral degree at King's College. Now this evening we're going to be discussing authentic faith, and to be honest I wasn't too sure what it was myself before I started researching it for the programme, but we went out to the people on the street and we wanted to find out from them whether or not they blame God when things go wrong in their lives and when things are difficult. Let's find out what they said.
Well, I think yes, they should blame God because, okay, in what sense, of course, but because God is in control, so He is responsible for that. So, I mean, if people come honestly and ask why, He is the one to answer.
No, I don't think it's okay to blame God. I don't think He's I don't think He's the cause of bad things. I think they happen for a deeper reason. As a Christian, I think that's because of sin. And so God's not so much the reason that bad things happen, but the solution to cope with them.
It depends probably on people, personality, what kind of experience they have.
No, I don't think it's God's will for things to go to bad. I think He allows certain things. I don't know why.
And the outcome will be how they, see the religion things, God. Do they understand His love or not? So this is quite philosophical question.
But I would never fully understand it. But I think it's His fault or His will.
Say for example, you smoke 20 fags a week for 10 years and then you get lung cancer. I mean, that's a pretty bad thing to happen. Nobody wants lung cancer, but to blame God in a situation like that would be unfair because it's only a natural result of you smoking 20 fags a day. And I know that's not the case for every situation, but I guess that's just one example of maybe when a bad thing happens, when maybe we shouldn't be blaming God, but looking for other reasons as to why this bad thing actually took place.
I guess this is the most asked question, and it is natural that they would blame God because they think He's almighty and so forth. So, but I think they have not understood God's character in their fullness. So if they had understood that, then it wouldn't be okay. But since they don't understand that, it's okay.
I don't blame. I look at my situation and recognize that there are going to be challenges. That's the part of life.
Oh no, of course not.
Okay.
That's the world itself. You can't blame God. You know what I mean? We're the humans. We're living. You know what I mean? You got to take responsibility of your own destiny. But obviously, always have faith.
Life, you're going to go through challenges, and I feel that through those challenges, I get stronger because I realize that God is there to support me. And when I look back on the past and the challenges, I think, well, wow, I didn't get through those challenges by myself. It was through God's presence and His help that I was able to get through. But it's not easy. It's not easy to do that.
Yeah, I think God would not mind if people blame Him for it. I think it's okay if people want to blame God for it. the question is if this is going to solve the problem. I mean, if it's, will it help? That will be my question.
So, having heard these various responses, it will be interesting to see now what you as the panel, have to say about this issue. So, Patrick, I'll come to you first. Do you think that society as a whole has no interest in God until something bad happens?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I think what we often do is when things go wrong, we're looking for meaning in whatever those circumstances are. And we test our answers in finding meaning against various propositions. So if the Christians are trying to say, well, God has everything in control, then we would say, okay, so where was he in this situation? How does that proposition work in my circumstance, which, whatever it might be, pretty unfortunate. So we're always seeking for meaning in our lives, whether or not we believe in God. And God would be one of those things that we try to wrestle with in placing meaning in the circumstances that happen to us.
I think that one of the most difficult aspects to me about life is identifying or acknowledging when times are good. When things are good, there's nothing wrong going on and things are normal, you're in good health, it's very rare that I stop and think, oh, I'm breathing fine today. Or, hey, I'm not coughing right now. It's only when you're not breathing fine, you are coughing, that you start to think, oh, what's going on? What's wrong? You have to identify what changed. And I think God has become a very easy default. It's easy to throw a why God or why is God doing this? But very rarely, personally anyway, do I consciously acknowledge him or acknowledge this idea of God when things are going good. So, I would have to say that society, for the most part, at least from my perspective, we are quick to blame something that is not visible, something that is unexplainable, for what is going on, because we can't explain what is going on, or there's no rational process that we can see at the time that caused whatever is going on. So default, hey, God did it.
I think sometimes when things are going bad in people's lives, they're also finding not just meaning, but some kind of comfort, some type of resolution, which is probably the same as meaning. And the easy target is God, or the easy person to first of all look for it is God or some higher being to try and explain what's going on, to try and find some kind of comfort. So God, like you said, is sort of like the default, and he's actually for most people, they can tap into this higher being because somebody's in contact with them, maybe around them in society as well.
I think certainly in the UK, we're a society which is always searching for someone to blame. We have a very big blame culture at the moment. When something goes wrong, we have to search and find someone to blame, whether it's from the ridiculous in sport. We have to find someone to blame, a politician. Someone's always to blame. We can go through it here in the UK at the moment. We like to blame other people for everything. And I think God falls into that. And often it's when we blame someone, we do it in a very coward way. And blaming God is the coward way to do, because it's easy to do. But on the same side, someone like myself who has a faith, is it wrong for us to blame God? Some of the answers were, it's okay and God's all right with that. And I journey through the narratives in the Bible story which talk about the different people who as faith believers, we say, follow what this guy did, this guy. And we always say, follow the good things. But there was a lot of time where they doubted and blamed God and had moments where they put it on God. But then they came through that. So sometimes I think blaming God is a process that we have to, or maybe at times need to go through to strengthen our faith.
I'm just thinking, could blaming God actually be a positive thing? You know, so for example, my friend dies, and God gives breath, he takes it away. He took her breath away.
I think we have to be, we have to be very careful how we answer it, because sometimes we can speak for God and totally misrepresent him. That was God's will, Sophia, so we have to accept it. Well, no, it's not God's will for anybody to die. It's not God's will for anybody to suffer. But sometimes we can speak too much for God, I think, on his behalf.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's inherent in the idea of a God, because a God, at least as Christians talk about him, is all-knowing and all-powerful and in control of everything. So inherent in that idea, well, if he's in control of everything, when things go wrong, did he lose control or what? So it's a natural question, really, in a sense. If this God was limited in some way, then you could give him an excuse. But because, Christians are saying, well, he knows it all, well, okay, then answer me, how on earth, what role did he play in the death of my friend or whatever else? So, yeah, I understand why the question is pertinent, in a sense. Not that I'm saying I've got the answer, but at least you can understand why people would be asking it.
So as we're starting to find, this topic really is quite debatable, and I don't think we've quite gotten to the answer yet, but we're going to keep delving further. But before we do, let's enjoy some music by Tessera.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I'm tired, I'm weak, I'm worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. When my way grows drear, precious Lord, linger near. When my life is almost gone, hear my cry, hear my call, hold my hand, lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. When the darkness appears and the night draws near and the day is past and gone. At the river I stand, guide my feet, hold my hand, take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home, lead me home. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on through the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. Take my hand, lead me Lord, lead me home. Lead me home.
That was wonderful. I really enjoyed listening to their music. So refreshing. This evening, we've been talking about authentic faith, and so far we've been discussing whether or not we blame God in difficult circumstances. But I think we're now going to try and come at it from a different angle, and to help us get there, I'd like to invite John to share his personal experience with us.
I'm just taken back to about 4 years ago. I was in my my university in the States, and I was at a point in my life where I was just tired of everything that I had grown up with. Second son of a pastor. I had grown up in the church environment my entire life. I knew what the Bible said. I knew what God's word was. I knew what I was supposed to be doing as a Christian. But I was tired. I was done with it because it meant nothing to me. It was my father's religion. It was my family's practice, and I didn't know what it meant. And so I consciously decided to move away from it. Just in my day-to-day actions, I put myself in situations, compromising situations, was involved with things that I'm not proud of. And this lasted for about a year and a half. One evening in the summer, I woke up and I just realized that I was anxious. I was really confused with what was going on. I was scared to go outside my room. I was second guessing every single thought. Imagine trying to breathe, but you have to think about each breath in and out, in and out. And this happened to me for 6 days consecutively, where every waking moment I had to consciously remind myself to breathe. I later on found out that I was having a really intense panic attack and anxiety attack. But I felt like it was almost a punishment for what I had been doing for a year and a half. You know, it was God's way of saying, "Hey, that was wrong." But I had decided after 6 days that this was my life. This was what my every day was going to be for the rest of my life. I was just going to be in this state for the rest of my life. And I went to one of my mentors, Pastor Litchfield in Chattanooga, and I had talked to some of the other leaders in my community, and they told me, they said, "John, I don't think this is God. I think this is these are situations that we oftentimes put ourselves in, and the results of our actions are so confusing to us that we forget the actions that brought us there." And a lot of different things happen, but one story that one of my mentors told me was that this whole concept of salvation or faith or believing in Jesus, it wasn't a thing where I could do something to earn it. It wasn't a situation where if I did this thing, I got salvation, or if I didn't do this thing, I disqualified myself from salvation. He painted it as a picture of a friend calling me on the phone and saying, "Hey, John, if you go outside to your porch, there's a $20 bill, 20-pound note, whatever you want to use. It's on your porch. I left it there. It's yours." And my mentor said, "Hey, John, is that $20 yours?" And I said, "Yeah, he gave it to me." He said, "But is it yours? Can you spend it? Is it in your pocket?" He's like, "No." "Did you earn it?" "No." "So how can it become yours?" And I was like, "Well, duh. You got to go out. I got to go outside and pick it up and take it." And he said, "That's it." He said, "See, God has already given you grace. He's already given you salvation. He's already forgiven you for everything that you've done. The only thing that you can do, because you can't earn it, you can't be disqualified from it, there's nothing that you can do that can separate you from this gift that's already been given, right? The only thing is you have to accept it. And by accepting it, it becomes who you are. You now have $20 in your pocket, and you walk differently when you have $20 in your pocket from when you don't. And it just changed the way I looked at this whole thing, because for so long I had been blaming God for the problems in my life and blaming him for when I was having bad times, and God, you're in control, so why is this happening? And I realized that a lot of the things that I do, a lot of the actions that I take have consequences, but those consequences are not the end. They're not, they don't define me, and his grace is still sufficient. So.
Thank you so much for sharing this experience with us, John. And I think it's really interesting, this analogy that you've used of the dollar, or the £20 note outside. But I wanted to ask a question. Is there such a thing as an unconditional gift? Sophia, what do you think?
It's a really good question, and I think John's stories alluded to there is such a thing as an unconditional gift. I think about as a child when my parents used to say, right, you're going to get a gift if you do X, Y, and Z. And the concept of grace, which is so far and so different to that, but it's real and it's true. There is such a thing as an unconditional gift.
I don't know about you, but I always get through either text messages, emails, through the door, you've won a gift, there's a gift waiting for you. It's never unconditional. There's always a condition attached to it. I don't believe that there is a free gift out there waiting for me. The only place I see unconditional gifts is when it's about relationships and in love. My 2 children, I can give them an unconditional gift, which is myself. My parents gave that to me. I can't see anything other than relationships with each other, relationships where we love one another and each other, where there's that's the only place I see today unconditional gifts. I can only see it through relationships with people.
That's healthy relationships, though, with people, because some people are in relationships that aren't necessarily healthy, and therefore the love is the gift of relationship, or the gift of love within that relationship has its conditions. I'll love you if you do X, Y, and Z. So I think, and some people can be in that situation where it is unhealthy, but that's all they know.
Yeah.
And it's a very human thing, isn't it? Because in a sense, in our realm, it's very difficult to give a good example of unconditional giving, because there's always we automatically, as skeptical beings, think, what's the catch? What is it I've got to do to earn it? Yeah, when I get those things in the post, you got to read the small print, because there is some catch in there that you need to have read before you get. So, yeah, it's very rare to find any examples of unconditional giving among humans, I find.
Yeah. I remember being accepted to university. Back then I applied to 6 universities, and I got unconditional offers for every single one of those universities. And I felt like, wow, I can just kind of take the brakes off a little bit. But there was still the condition that I passed the course. So, exactly. Even though they'd given me these unconditional offers, I still had to pass the course to actually get entrance into any of those universities. So yeah. But I do stand by the fact that there's one unconditional gift. Or maybe 2, like you said, in terms of relationships. So there is one unconditional gift of grace that we can have that is free.
I think that we almost disqualify all other gift-giving scenarios, because I've noticed, for myself anyway, is a lot of the gifts that I've received from my parents or friends have been because one way or the other, I've asked for it. Whether it's in just the way I acted or directly asking and said, hey, what do you want for Christmas? You know, and I want an iPad. If I get an iPad, that's a great gift. The person who gave it may not expect anything back, but there was a condition. I had to ask for it, right? And I think that that's what separates the grace gift, is because it was given in the midst of nobody asking.
Sure.
It was given in a context of not just that it wasn't deserved, but it wasn't even in the consciousness of the mind of the receivers, and that's why it's so hard in human terms to explain it, for me anyway, or when I try to explain it to somebody else. That dollar story is the only one that I can do, because, I mean, one way or the other, if I give you something, I kind of want to thank you, right? Like, yes, I'm giving it to you. I'm giving it to you, and I'm giving it to you because for whatever, but I want something back. I need something back, whether it's unspoken or, verbally. And grace is nothing like that. It's there.
Yeah.
Take it.
And maybe as the gift giver, as the gift receiver, the recipient, I probably want to give you back something. I'm thinking, well, he's going to be expecting something back in the long run for the gift that he's given me. Yeah.
So I think, it's quite, the way I'm understanding it is that there is this grace gift, and it's just difficult to comprehend simply because we're used to there being conditions, and we're used to there being almost, I think, catch-21 as they call it. And I guess it's important to know that there is this grace available, and, how do we go about receiving it? This evening we've been discussing authentic faith, and we've been looking at grace and how it's this unconditional gift which is available to us, and that's a concept which at least I for myself find quite difficult to believe, but it is true and it's real. So I'm going to pass over to Andrew. I know that this is something which you've been thinking about and studying. If you could just share your thoughts with us, please.
Yeah, I want to just focus for a few minutes on what we came to in the second part, mostly from your story, John, but this idea of an unconditional gift, this gift of grace. I just want to take you back briefly in my journey as a teenager growing up. Similar to John, I grew up as a Christian, but later rejected this for a considerable period of time. But as life progressed, I then started to go back to Christianity and to look at it again, and to look at it for the first time, because it was my parents' religion. It was not really mine. I had a very negative impression of Christianity. As much as I liked the reading and the historical side of Christianity, and especially the prophetic side of the Bible, the mysteries of there, Christianity was still very negative for me. But as I continued my journey, I explored other religions as well, other areas within Christianity, other faiths completely as well. I was convinced more and more that Christianity was the faith for me, the journey that I should be heading towards. But I missed the whole point of what Christianity was, and I think that's why it was so negative to me. I missed what made Christianity totally different to all other religions. And that was that I was looking at doctrines, I was looking at theologies, I was looking at belief systems, ways of living, and I completely missed the point of what Christianity was that it wasn't about doctrines or theologies, as important as they are. It was about a person and being in a relationship with this person, and that Jesus Christ, who was the center of this faith, was actually the doctrine himself. He came to this part of the universe and said, look, I will become the doctrine, I will become that very thing. And once I had established that, I really understood what Christianity meant and it led to more discoveries, which I would just like to share. One thing that confused me when I was starting out on my journey in Christianity was this concept of the old and new, which is a big theme in the faith of Christianity. A guy called Paul, who wrote a large section of the Bible, he said this. He said, "The old is now dead, and we are new people born again." This didn't make much sense. But when I realized that Jesus was the center of my faith, was the very essence of what Christianity was, this now made sense. This idea of the old is gone and the new is here. Because when we accept Jesus and his claims to be God, I think we then are dead in our old ways and are born again. Just as a side note to that, for my journey, I sort of went from one place to another. There was no sudden change. There was no rebirth, immediate rebirth. And I think that's important as we journey, if we want to experience Christ. You know, I always talk about my daughters a lot because, as I said, I can give them unconditional love. And it's very easy for me to do. It's very easy for me to love my children. It doesn't take a lot of effort. And people would say the same back to me in my journey. Well, if you love your children this much, can you imagine how much God loves you? And that's very true, but it sometimes doesn't help because I couldn't grasp on it. And as much as I wanted to believe this idea, I'm still human. I still have anxieties. I still have fears. I still panic. I still question. And no matter how much they told me God loves me, it still that wasn't always good enough, or wasn't good enough for me then. How could I be certain that this was real, that God really loved me? How could I be certain that there was an unconditional gift waiting for me? You know, I read a survey that was done on streets of London and New York and all major cities around the world, speaking to Christians who had a faith, asking them, are you sure of your faith? Are you sure you're going to be saved? And the most common answers were these: sort of, kind of, maybe, I think so, possibly, probably, I'm not sure, no, but I kind of am. And finally, yes, but then if I really think about it, then probably no. How can we be sure of our faith? Because I think all of us, if we question that, how can we be sure that gift is for us? How can we be sure God really does love us? Somebody in the Bible wrote these words: I write these things to you so that you can believe in Jesus. Why? So that you will know that you will live forever. How can we claim that? How can we know that we can accept that gift? I think a book I read helped me understand this. The book was called Heaven, Here I Come. And when I saw the book, I thought, how can anybody write a book with such arrogance? Heaven, here I come. How do you know you're going to heaven? How do you know you're saved? I found that a really arrogant thing for somebody to write. Heaven, here I come. And then I realized, well, yeah, it would be a really arrogant title of a book to write. It would be really arrogant for me to say, Heaven, here I come, if I thought that heaven, my destiny or my entrance to heaven depended on me. Then it would be really arrogant, because I'm full of all sorts of rubbish, basically. So if my acceptance to God or heaven depended on me, then I would be very arrogant to claim, Heaven, here I come. But you know, it doesn't depend on me. My relationship or my acceptance from God doesn't depend on me. It depends on what happened 2,000 years ago on a piece of wood, on a hill in a country that I've never even visited. That's what matters. That's what's going to get me right with God. And when I established that and accepted that. When I knew that that is what is going to put me into a right relationship with God, yeah, I experienced what it really meant to have a faith. Because if it depended on me, I wasn't going to get there. But that's all very well and good. But there's still, as John touched in his story, there's still an element for me to do. And for me, it's about stepping out and taking that gift or taking that $20 bill. And I'm reminded of a story of a famous man called Jean-Francois Gravlin. We often know him as Blondin, the tightrope walker. Mazed and memorized people walking 300 meters above the Niagara Falls. That was his most famous walk. And one particular time he was walking and the British royal family were there. And he went across the pole and then he threw the pole away. Then he walked blindfolded and then he walked backwards. And then he stopped halfway and made himself some food. We all know the story. And then he put a bag of potatoes in a wheelbarrow and he went across again. And then he shouted to the crowd in amazement, "Do you think that I can carry another person across in my wheelbarrow?" And they were all cheering him on. And the Duke of Newcastle from the royal family says, "We believe you, you can do it." He says, "Okay, then jump in." And obviously we know the story. The Duke wasn't too keen, to put it that way. He was quiet, he didn't want to get in, and in fact nobody else in the crowd would accept the challenge. They knew he could do it, but they wouldn't step out in faith and put their trust to the test. And in the end, the only person willing to get out was this old lady who stepped out and sat in the cart, and he wheeled her across and back safely. And the old lady was his mother. The only person willing to put her life in his hands. And I think that's the only thing that we have to do. Because faith isn't just merely intellectual. I journeyed through, my faith started from an intellectual conviction. But faith involves an act or a step, as John put, a step of putting our trust in this man's arms, putting our life into this man we call Jesus. And it's not that we earn our way to heaven at all. We cannot earn it by acceptance, we can't earn it by repentance, we can't earn it by faith. Those are just the means to how we accept it. But once we accept it as a gift. It was earned for us by somebody else, not by me. And once I accepted this and I understood this, and once I believed this, then I really experienced and knew what it was like to have real faith. The rest was not real. This is what was real. Accepting that it was all down to somebody else and it was free. I just had to step out and claim it. That's how it journeyed for me in my life.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Andrew. And I guess one thing I really want to find out, which I'm hoping that possibly some viewers may want to find out as well, is once I have this gift of grace and salvation that you're talking about, can it be taken away? And John, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't think that it can be taken away. I think that as we've tried to describe, it's been given freely. It's been handed out. The amount of things that have been gone on in the world between when the 2,000-year limit that we're saying this happened, and now every possible thing in the world has happened. Every bad possible thing. There's no bad thought, no action. There's nothing that's happening today that hasn't happened before. And I think that because it is still available, the idea that it can be taken away is not consistent with the gift. Now, because it's already been given, I think that it's very easy to miss it. I think it's very easy to accept that it's there, see it there, but not take it and put it in our pocket, or not take it and apply it to our lives. And I think that it's possible that once we have it, that for whatever reason, our humanity, our struggles, our hardships can allow us to let go of it. It can allow us to forget that it's a free gift, and that we can strive so hard to be worth it. And because we're striving so hard to be worth it, but because it was given without any conditions, we can never live up to that. And I think that we can lose hope and let it go. Taken away, no, but let go and lost. I think that's human of us for that to happen.
I think the expense of the gift that was given, that's why the gift giver would never consider taking it away from us. You never want to take a gift away from somebody, but I would agree with John. We can so easily let go of that gift. We can accept lies, and we can accept the doubts that come along, and those are the things that help us. Those are the things that allow us or contribute to us letting go of the concept of receiving this gift. But I also think that we need to daily accept that gift. You know, we need to daily say thank you for that gift and live in the presence of that gift. You know, I remember my mum giving me this beautiful vase, and because I didn't have any flowers to put in this vase, I hid it away. And it was only when I had flowers to put in the vase that I took the vase out and put it on the table. Until she asked me, where is that gift? Because I spent a lot of money in those. I really thought of you, and I thought of how you'd look after that gift. You know, and I had it in the corner. And it reminded me, and I made a conscious decision to keep that gift out, whether it had flowers in it or not, because I wanted to appreciate the gift as it was, each and every day. And I think that's the same thing.
Yeah, I think I would agree with you that based on what Andrew said as well, from all the stories that Jesus tells in the Bible, there is no way he's going to take the gift back once he's given it. So I think I agree with you there. Maybe the question is trying to hint at, is there any way of losing it? And I think maybe there is that possibility for us to lose it. If we were to use your example of that £20 note, I can by carelessness lose it, or I may never ever pick it up and it's never been mine or whatever. So, just to press the example a little bit, that can happen, I think, and then it becomes ineffective. But from the giver's perspective, it seems as if once it's given, it's never taken back.
It'd be pretty cruel, wouldn't it? I mean, if you, even from a human point, an earthly point of view, if you give somebody a gift and then you expect it back, it wouldn't have been unconditional in the first place. No. You know, it's defeated the purpose. But people can give up that gift even after they've received it, most definitely. But that's, I think, for me, why something you said, Sophia, which I think is it's got me thinking, that this idea of renewing it every day and keeping it out, and almost take the idea of the vase, polishing it and cleaning it and keeping it nice. That's what we need to do with grace, which is the gift we're talking about, because it's such a profound gift. I think you could spend your lifetime meditating on it day and night and you still wouldn't really grasp it. It's a gift which was given, but that makes no sense, which for a human being it's hard to understand. I remember as a kid growing up trying to think, what would it like to live forever, or that life has always existed. There's always got to be start and end. The human mind can't cope with that concept. And that's the same with the gift of grace. And that's why we have to keep wrestling with it and playing with it, is because it's such a profound thing. That's the only thing you can do with it. The moment you put it away in the drawer and don't bring it out every day is the moment you've taken it for granted, or you haven't really accepted it at all.
So, Andrew, just, to summarise, this theme of grace and authentic faith and how to go about acquiring it, what would you say?
I think we need to step out in faith and claim it. Don't look at ourselves of what do I do to deserve it? What have I done to receive it? Or how can I change something and then claim it? Because you will keep going till the day you enter your grave. You'll never be worthy. You'll never be ready to receive it. You've got to just go out in faith and accept that for whatever reason, this God who created us gave it us unconditionally for nothing that we have done. And once we accept that, we really can embrace, enjoy and journey in faith, in the Christian faith.
Brilliant. So while we take a moment just to sit and think about what's been said and think about how it's relevant in our lives, let's just reflect and enjoy the thought while we listen to some music. That was fantastic. And I really hope that this evening's programme has been enjoyable for all of you. I hope that there's been something that you've learned that you can take away, that you can use for your day-to-day life and as a source of encouragement also. I'd like to thank our guests for taking the time to be a part of the programme this evening and for sharing their thoughts and their personal stories. I'd also like to thank you at home for tuning in and being a part of it as well. And we'd like to see you back again, same time tomorrow, where we're going to be discussing loneliness and really getting into the concept of why people are lonely. But I won't give too much away. We'll see you tomorrow on Connect to Escape.